Hello, Internet. I'm here to talk about a subject I said I would talk about during my ActRaiser Let's Play, and that is the subject of randomly generated levels within video games. Now, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, what I mean by randomly generated levels is by when the game environment is not designed by any person, but rather just created by an algorithm or a code. Now, before I start getting into the subject in depth, I gotta tell a little story, because this is going to be the basis of everything I say from this point on. And what I want to tell you is the story of how I discovered video games in the first place. Which was quite simple. I was a kid, and somehow my parents acquired an NES. That's it. Well, I grew up in the age of the Super Nintendo, but, I grew up with the NES because, my brother is much older than me, and he had the Super Nintendo, and when he acquired that, I acquired the NES. And the first game I played, and my favorite game for a very long time, was Super Mario Brothers. And man, this game was fun, and it was in the mind of a child. This game, it was weird, and I loved it. I mean, when you're a kid, you're playing with your toys and whatnot, and all of a sudden this thing comes along, and it's like you plug this into the TV, and this trippy music starts coming through, and these weird visuals, and these strange ideas that you're exposed to, and this plumber jumping on mushrooms and hitting bricks with his head and eating flowers, and it's so weird. And on top of all that, you're in control of it all. It's such a weird concept for a little kid, one of the great things about video games is it's not just a game. It's like this world that you can get absorbed into, And that's what made, like Super Mario Brothers so neat growing up, is because it let you explore this imaginary world that was just so weird and so cool, But then you start to realize something, and that is, after you play it enough times, you know what to expect, because every time you play the game, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to go right, and you're going to jump on stuff. And eventually, you know exactly what's going to be there when you go right, and you know what you're going to jump on. It's still fun, but it loses that charm, that sense of exploration and discovery. And then another game came along. Well, it didn't come along, it was out for quite a while, but I discovered it. This game was introduced to me by some friends of the family. It was a game called The Legend of Zelda. Might have heard of it. Really fantastic game, revolutionary game, and it blew my mind as a kid. You get to a certain point playing games, in the NES era of games, in the NES library, you kind of expect the game to follow a certain path. But Legend of Zelda was completely different. You start out the game, and you can go any direction you want. And you can do whatever you want, you can explore, you can look for the Triforce pieces, you can look for all the secret hidden stuff. You can do whatever you want. And that is when games really started to feel like another world. Because it wasn't this, kind of Mario syndrome, I'd call it, of you know where you're going, you know what's coming up. Because there is so much stuff that is just hidden in this game. And even though there's no multiplayer to speak of, it very much became a social experience. Because in order to find all this stuff, you pretty much had to communicate with your friends. and share secrets and share, hand-drawn maps. I remember as a kid, when I got this cartridge along with the game, I got a bunch of hand-drawn maps from the previous owner of the game. It was really neat, and of course, as I'm playing the game, I'm adding to these maps and marking stuff off, and and it's like, oh man, I think there's something on this screen, and you go around, you're trying to burn every bush and push every rock and everything, and then you'd find something, and it'd be like, oh man, this is so cool, and then you'd find something that the previous owner of the game didn't know about, and the rest of your family didn't know about, and it was so cool, and it's like, this is my secret, I found this, it's mine, and it's not yours, but you really do feel that way as a kid. And it's a great feeling, and no other game could produce that for me at that time. But for better or worse, the world has changed, and games like The Legend of Zelda can no longer provide this sense of exploration. And there's one simple reason for that, and that is the internet and social media and how connected everybody is. Because if one desires, one can simply Google a walkthrough of The Legend of Zelda, and they can instantly find every secret within the game without even trying, without even wanting to know every secret in the game. It's there. That knowledge is there. And even recent games, it's honestly, it's hard to go on the internet and avoid spoilers for newer games that you're trying to play through. It's difficult sometimes. Like, if you really want to truly enjoy a new game from beginning to end, in a lot of cases you have to just isolate yourself from certain internet sources in order for certain things in the game to not be spoiled for you. Now, I'll get back to all that stuff in a bit, but the point that I'm trying to get to with this video is random level generation, and I promise you this is relevant, don't worry. But I think it's time to start talking about the subject itself. Now, random level generation has been around for a very, very long time. It was very prevalent in the early ages of PC gaming. Now, I missed out completely on the early days of PC gaming. As I said, my gaming diet as a kid was the NES. Now, randomly generated levels were featured in a lot of games in the early days of the PC. Games like NetHack and Rogue and all the roguelikes that were spawned from Rogue, of course. Now, while this feature of random levels certainly enhanced a lot of games, like roguelikes in particular, well, they'd be pretty darn repetitive if they weren't randomly generated because you're dying so often. But this wasn't always sort of a planned feature. Sometimes it was a technical necessity. A lot of people don't realize this, but the first two games in the Elder Scrolls series, Arena and Daggerfall, relied very, very heavily on random generation, and this was simply because a world that huge, if it were designed by hand and all planned out and laid out by hand, well, it simply would be too big to fit on a disc. The technology at that time couldn't support it. So the solution was to generate the world on the fly as the player explored it. Now, obviously, in Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim, this is no longer the case. The world is handcrafted, hand-designed, laid out because, well, technology evolved, and as soon as that became a viable method of doing things, the developers did it that way. And I'm not here to, argue which method is better. There's certainly pros and cons on each side, and honestly, the debating, that's your job. I'm just here to share my thoughts, really. I can kind of understand why the industry would prefer handcrafted levels over randomly generated levels, and this goes a lot with sort of the concept of authorship over a game. And much like an author would write a book. They want to sort of direct the experience of the reader, and so the game developer would want to direct the experience of the player. Now, once again, there's a lot of debate as to whether that's the right way to go about game design or not, but I can certainly relate to that feeling of wanting to control and direct the experience and the flow of things. But there's one group of people who have time and time again showed that they really don't care about the conventions of things, and can certainly shake things up, and that would be indie developers. Yes, there are a lot of indie games that randomly generate their levels, and this has been going on for quite some time. There's a lot of sort of modern-day roguelikes popping up. One of the most notable examples would have to be Dwarf Fortress, and this game is amazing, and there is practically nothing in this game that is preset by the game's designer. And yet some of the most absurd stuff happens in this game. I mean, almost as fun as playing the game itself is reading about other players' experiences in this game, because it's so unpredictable, and it just throws this crazy stuff at the player, and the player can pretty much do whatever they want in response. It's amazing. And it's great because there's absolutely no storyline, but stories pop up because the players create their own stories with this. And I mean, there's some very, very famous examples. I mean, Boat Murdered is, I think, by far the most famous. You can go look for it if you want. It's not safe for work, just warning you, but it's hilarious. But there's another example, and one I'm sure you expected me to get to eventually, and that would be Minecraft. And Minecraft, if you don't know, is a game in which you mine and craft things. And the world in which you do so is 100% randomly generated. And I tell you, when I played this game for the first time, I felt something that I had not felt in a very long time, and it was that sense of freedom and an exploration, the same kind of feelings I got from the original Zelda, and it was great. It was so nostalgic, and I didn't expect to feel that from a modern game, but I did, and it was great. It's just amazing knowing that you can, go over to that horizon and you can just keep walking forever, and you will never stop encountering new things and interesting things. I mean, you could, and you don't even know what's underneath your feet. There could be, some kind of a dangerous cave right underneath your house. Or there could be, treasure or whatever, and you don't know until you explore, and it encourages that exploration and, go off the beaten path. There isn't even a path. There's no path to go off of. You have to make your own. It's a really, really amazing feeling, and it's very, very liberating after all these years of games that more or less hold your hand. Now, what's really kind of funny about this whole thing is that the games industry keeps spending, millions and millions of dollars trying to create these edgy cinematic experiences in their single-player games. And a lot of them are being outsold by Minecraft. And Minecraft, I mean, is as far from cinematic as you can get. And its success is hard to argue with. It really shows what people really want from their games, and I'm certainly not saying that cinematic experiences are bad, and they're certainly enjoyable from time to time. It is my opinion that when it comes to games, and I mean games in their purest sense, that randomly generated levels really do add a lot to the experience, because it makes the experience yours. and yours alone. Your Minecraft level will never be the same as anybody else's Minecraft level. Your fortress and dwarf fortress will never be the same as anybody else's. Yet, you know, nobody else will have the same kind of crazy antics as you in the process of building said fortress. You know, nobody is gonna go through the same dungeon in NetHack. I think this really offers a very pure sort of gaming experience because you have to learn by doing this way. You can't just look up online, you know, how do I get past this area, or where's all the hidden stuff. You got to find it yourself. And you know, I think that's just such a pure form of gaming. And you know, going back to you know, relating this to Legend of Zelda, I mean, if you want, you can share this stuff with your friends. You can show your friends your level. You can send them the save file or whatever and get their input on it. You can collaborate with people. I mean, you know, games like Minecraft, you can play online with people, and it's really just a great experience. Well, those are my thoughts on random level generation. Hope you enjoyed it. I want to know your thoughts on the matter. I've said all mine. Now, your voice can too be heard or read in the comments section. And please, people, keep it civil. No one likes a YouTube fight. And yes, this is my first time doing any kind of a video like this, you know. Let me know if you want to see more of it, you know. Like, favorite, subscribe, all of that kind of stuff. And, yep, that's all I have to say. Goodbye.